So the story behind this watch, I was not going to buy this.
So that was my favorite watch that I saw last year, and in person is just mind-boggling. The beauty, the harmony of every detail, the how everything is crisp, the play of light, because the inner track is going to change color, like it does on my Patek 5296 when you turn it, and then those cornes de vache are just and it's in steel, and the price in steel is it's like a price of palladium.
You were making this joke the other day that steel is more expensive than gold or platinum in Switzerland. It's a rich man's problem. But no, the what I was going for is I've had in the back of my mind a chronograph 1815 from Lange. So the simple one.
Is it everyone's favorite or what? I think it is.
Yeah, because if you like watches and you look at the architecture, you look at the case back and it's like falling into a city, literally.
It's gorgeous.
It's absolutely incredible. The level of finishing beats the pants of anyone in the market, including the other ones which we shall not mention.
We can because Lange really gave a good kick to the whole industry of luxury and the Holy Trinity, and they had to step up. But it's very interesting that you still went for this one. You had obviously second-hand, great discount, which makes it totally more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to take the hit, but it's still the classic Le Mania, finished to the standard of Vacheron, which
it's produced by Vacheron. Actually, they not take it from because they have the right.
That's interesting.
So they have the right. So they actually purchased the right to that movement.
So they produce
everything. So the architecture and the design of the movement, they pay for the right to have it like many years ago. But they produce every single piece of it, and what they're doing on this, which is their reference 1142, if you compare to the base Le Mania 2310, what they've done is that they have taken the swan neck regulator out and have put a free sprung balance instead, which is far more accurate and stable down the line, but it's a lot more difficult to regulate in the first place. So there's more work to be done. And then what they've done is that they've increased the frequency from 2.5 hertz to 3 hertz. So instead of 18,000, you've got a 21,600 now, while also improving the power reserve, because I think that the power reserve.
So you mean it goes as fast as a Seiko?
It goes as fast as a Seiko.
That is incredible.
That is incredible.
That is
breaking news.
It's a sports watch.
Breaking news. Vacheron manages to match Seiko to make a movement, so that is incredible. I mean,
they're really going all the way on this watch.
they really
no,
are.
But seriously, Patek, Roger Dubuis, and the other, they all had their version, and it's one of the most regarded watches. And now Omega comes back with the 321 in full force. This is Vacheron's way of doing it, and it's just mind.
It's incredible now.
But this is why we love watches. It's not because they are as accurate as an iPhone. It's because the people put their passion into it.
No, it's very true, and again, one of the reasons why I wanted the Lange in the first place is because I think that in terms of a dressed up chronograph, it's just about as good as it gets, bar none. I mean, an argument can be made for some of the Patek chronographs, which are incredible. I have my own issues with Patek, which we might discuss about at some stage. But I really wanted the 1815 chronograph. I like the idea and the brand of Lange probably better than I do Vacheron Constantin. The movement, as we said, is mind-boggling. But then I went to try it on about 3 weeks ago with my round wrist, and it's not a large watch by many standards. I think it's 39.5 millimeters, and it just didn't fit my wrist. So, and I was like, I've got a number of watches which are 39.5, 40, or even 41 millimeters, and they fit. Why isn't this fitting my wrist? Because I was just so disappointed.
Sometimes you idolize, you fantasize about those watches, and then you try them on, and then you went to try the Vacheron,
Yes.
I guess the two shops here in Hong Kong are right next to each other.
Yes, of course.
So what was the impression when you saw this one compared to the other one?
So Zeitwerk, I would just say that it's the world's sexiest hamburger, because that's exactly what it feels on the wrist.
As I said, it's great watchmaking, but is it a
Yes.
great watch for every day? Probably not.
Look, if you are,
Or for any day, for that matter.
If you are built like Dwayne Johnson, you probably can get away with it. It's not my case. And even just the 1815 chronograph, 39.5 millimeter. But what I noticed when I was wearing this watch, there was a few things. It wasn't sitting flat on the wrist. That was related to the fact that 39.5 millimeter is probably a bit too big compared to what I want for a dress watch. I'm happier at between 37.5 to 39 millimeter for a dress watch. But irrespective. The problem with that is also that they have very long lugs, and that the spring bar are positioned at the very end of the lugs.
Right.
So what people call the wingspan of the watch is actually quite large. So I really do think it's 39.5 millimeter. It probably wears more like a 40.5, if not a 41. And then what you have is the case back is not flat. You have a lip, which is where the transparent sapphire case back sits. And therefore, not as much obviously as the seat dweller that we were talking about earlier, but it's not going to sit flush on the wrist. And for my bone structure, it just didn't sink in. The problem was even compounded because I wouldn't say I lost sleep over it, but almost. They have these incredible straps, Lange, but they are made of a large scale alligator on the outside. And it's a round scale alligator on the inside, instead of just one of these very how do you call it soft box or suede type leather. And what that meant is, because the strap is just so rigid to start with, if the watch doesn't fit your wrist to start with, then it's going to compound it, because then you're going to have something very stiff, and then the watch is just going to sit like this.
Fight with it for a while.
Yeah. So
what I hate is when it creates a gap anywhere on the wrist.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially with also what I like with Lange is that they put a simple buckle at least, because the deployants might be safer in some way, but often they're gonna push away from your wrist, and you have that weird sort of gaps on some straps.
There are very, very few deployant clasp that I like for that particular reason, because typically they tend to extend far too long, and if the angle is not quite right.
I mean, you shave your wrist, obviously.
Yeah, I shave my wrist.
But look at mine. This is going to be a disaster.
I'm very conscious about my wrist. So wrist.
I think you should model all the watches on the channel, because mine are disgusting. People are asking me to manscape my wrist. I have limits. I'm going to manscape wherever the ladies want, but the wrist, they like it. It's more like it's very manly.
So the point you were making earlier was interesting, because I came out of that shop being like gutted, like really, because I like.
Did you vomit in your mouth a little bit?
Not so much.
Did you tell the guy that you didn't like his watch?
I think I cried inside my brain a little bit for a while, but the one that I actually really, really liked, you were talking about moon phase, the Lange one moon phase, the one with the day-night integrator, that fits my wrist exactly right. But it's a very dressy watch, and I just probably would not have worn it as much. But I'm not giving up on this one. Maybe sometime down the line.
I like the one because it's the icon of Lange, but at the same time, because it's so much the icon, kind of kills it a bit. But also the geometry of it is not as inspiring to me as this, for example, like this, which is just makes you fall in love. The Lange ones, like, you have to think about it a little bit. You see it with your mathematical eyes, while this one you see it with your heart, I find.
I've always loved the Lange one, so for me, I just find that they.
But you are half German, that's why.
I'm half German, so.
Are you?
So
I
literally am. Yes.
There you go. So it appeals more to your roots.
So there's a bit of that, but it's just like it's symmetrical within its asymmetrical nature,
Yeah.
and that I find quirky. And in this particular watch, the fact that they have two discs on top of each other, one for the moon phase and the other one for the day night, where you have that disc that starts at very light blue in the morning and that goes to midnight blue with the stars in the night. It just makes me happy. Intellectually, it makes me happy to see that.
But you know what you have to do? You have to scratch the itch. Get one just to see how it is. Get a used one, see how it feels, and then if you don't like it, just set it back. But it's one of those watches that I think everyone has to own if they can afford it, and just to see how you feel about it wearing it every day. Because it's one thing to discuss it and see it in videos and all that. I think it's going to be different to see if it, because it's a very special look. So does it fit your lifestyle, even at work?
Probably less, and which is also one of the reasons why I went for this one, because same thing as in Central, where you visited the shop, and literally the Vacheron shop is nearby the Lange shop.
Same wall.
If you go to Tsim Sha Tsui, so on the other side of Hong Kong, on the continent, you have this kind of heritage site called Heritage 8081, which used to be some historic monument.
Beautiful shops there.
Beautiful shops there.
All empty.
All empty. Well, all the shops are empty.
Archie can't even get into those shops.
Well, I think they throw stones at him.
Not even IWC. He couldn't even get into IWC.
I mean,
but you can get there because you wear a nice shirt.
If IWC starts to reject you, you have an issue because they're probably desperate for your business anyway.
Oh yeah, normally they grab you outside if you look at a watch from a distance.
There's probably that, but luckily when I went to Lange in TST, and the 1815 chronograph didn't fit, I'm like, let's go to Vacheron, and maybe I had read a lot about this Corne de Vache, from the time it came out at the steel version
in the 40s Hodinkee, when you were about 20 years old.
yeah. When I got demobilized from the Second World War.
Did you get interested in it when Hodinkee did their version of the
I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was very interesting that Vacheron did that with a blog at the time. Although Hodinkee has always been a blog that was disguising an e-commerce operation. So I love Hodinkee, by the way. I think they're great. They've got Jack Foster, who's one of the greatest guy ever when it comes to watches. And these guys are actually passionate about this. So yeah, you can take everything with a grain of salt, but they really do like watches. A guy like Ben Clymer loves watch. A guy like Jack
his
Foster
collection shows that he loves
and
it.
You know what? I take my hat off to him, because he's an entrepreneur. He created something out of nothing.
Yeah. And
right now they're one of the best sites in the world for that. I mean, you look at the watches they're selling right now. It's they've done extremely well. And
talk about influencers. Nothing influences high end.
We can talk about this later, the Hodinkee effect about on some watches, because I'll maybe in another video I'll take out a couple of things which were directly influenced by an article or a couple of articles that Hodinkee posted, where the price of the watch ever since they posted this has tripled or quadrupled. So you have that because I think that there's a hunger for information. There's a number of people who are coming into this hobby, and because Hodinkee is so good and it's got such a platform that whatever they say, they're going to say, yeah, Hodinkee said it. John Myers goes out, and you've got like these obscure Daytona, the one with the green dial and the blue dial that nobody cared about. You could find them anywhere. They're not mass produced, but you could find them anywhere 3 years ago. Right now, they've kind of doubled in price because John Mayer said it's cool and it's the next best thing, and everybody has this absolute herd mentality that they have to go for this. And there's no other factor for the price of this watch going up than John Mayer, who I love, by the way, because he's a great watch guy. He's a fantastic musician as well. And
I mean, you just like the way he looks.
Well, he's bedded some of the most beautiful women in the world. So you can't argue with that.
But the reason we're talking about it is that Hodinkee had their version with a kind of a dark dial and a precision. By the way, is this one precision or is this one a tachymeter?
It's a tachymeter.
So it's different there, but what I like is that the execution here just smokes the one from Hodinkee, which went so fast. I mean, the demand for it was crazy.
Yeah, in 15 minutes they sold it.
And this one, they go quite easily, but you managed to see one in a shop. I did as well. So people are still a bit taken aback by the price, and yet it's a much better looking version than the one from Hodinkee, to be honest.
Look, it's aesthetics. I can understand why some people would go for.
It was more limited.
It was more limited. So yes. I'm wondering how the people who bought the Hodinkee in steel, thinking it was the only steel version that was ever going to be made, are feeling right now. So that's.
Do you think it's different enough?
Yes, because the shade of the dial, like the dark gray, separates it, and honestly, for me. A dark grey watch with silver hands is going to be unreadable most of the time. This is hard to read already. It's one of my least.
Yeah, it's silver on silver, but it's like the new GLC we were talking about, chronograph. It's also silver on silver.
So it can be difficult to read. I think the other one is even worse. The guy who did actually the best job at this is Waco. So the guy, the owner and editor of Revolution Watch and the Rake, because he had a special order made for him by Les Cabinotiers from Vacheron,
right?
And he couldn't really decide what kind of dial he wanted, so they proposed several type of dials. So his is in yellow gold, and it has a silver dial, but they gave him the watch with his dial and then 4 other dials because they had made 4 for him to choose from.
It must be good to be Waco. At first he put me off because he's very alpha male, but then recently he's been doing those videos from home, work from home kind of videos, and some really interesting interviews with the other guys. And he tends to talk too much compared to people he interviews, but I think he's leaning back a bit more now and letting people to talk more.
I love Waco. I mean, he's been massively successful. He's Singaporean. I have so much time for Singapore. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. He's done extremely well. He has he has a lot of taste. Sometimes it becomes a little bit narcissistic, some of his publication. I basically stopped to buy the Rake magazine when I once counted 33 pictures of him in the magazine. So I'm like, okay.
His shoes.
Yeah. So
it's got a nice
so even if it's healthy to have a good image of oneself, that was a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
But I still hugely admire the guy, and he knows what he's talking about. He's a great guy. There's a few guys like that.
But it's like you get different flavors. You get Hodinkee, you get Revolution. It's totally different flavors of, and yet they can talk about the same watch, but in a different way.
The other guy in Hong Kong, where it's really worthwhile to have a discussion with if you go there and if you like watches. And there's a couple of videos of him. Is Mark Cho from the Armory, who I know because I've been a customer of them from many years. He's an exceptional gentleman, and he is just so spot on for watches, straps, and so forth. He's just on other channels. I think there is an interview of him with Tim Mosso a few weeks back, and the guy is awesome, and he's just the nicest guy you will ever meet, and he's massively successful and he's so humble. It's actually heartwarming to speak with a guy like that, because he's just a great guy. But back on this, I'm getting sidetracked all the time. Sorry about that.
Well, there's so many things to talk about.
I went to visit the Vacheron shop after the debacle at the Lange shop, and they had 2 models of the Corne de Vache. They had the rose gold version.
Am I taking it off?
Yes, sure. They had the rose gold version, and they had the steel version. And the rose gold version is quite beautiful as well, but it's quite.
I prefer the steel.
It's very, very dressy.
It's very old-fashioned.
Very old school, very old-fashioned.
Sorry for the poor lighting, but I think that's good. It's popping. And so was it like, to me when I see this watch, it's like whoa, the Holy Grail kind of thing.
There was a bit of that, because they took the watch out. I had a look at it, and I'm like, wow, just
it's like you gotta have it, right?
I was just blown away, because I had only seen it in picture, but pictures obviously are flat. You don't quite realize how it is in 3D, and especially how it wore on the wrist. The comfort on the wrist was awesome. Obviously, what helps is the fact that it's stainless steel, so it's not as top heavy as a gold watch, which might have been an issue on the Lange. And then just the shape of for a start, so it's 38.5 millimeters rather than 39.5 like the 1815 was. The shape of the lugs the angle is much sharper, so it's going to contour my wrist much better. And the third thing, and you probably don't realize it with this strap, I've changed the Serapion strap with
which I like a lot, by the way. It's a great color.
It's a great color, but in Hong Kong, it's in the summer, it's going to last exactly 3 months, and you can throw it away.
This one you have a lining.
I have a rubber lining in this one, which is all of the leather straps I wear in Hong Kong have that, because
so
otherwise
it's comfortable.
It's comfortable, and it's not going to get ruined after just one summer. This is from Camille Fournet, by the way, which I...
Bonjour Camille.
Bonjour Camille. Camille is fantastic. They're probably the best that there is out there. They're really, really good. And yes, so I put it on the wrist, and it was magic. The strap, if you look at where the spring bar
mentioned earlier on
is located, it's located in the middle.
So the horn goes further.
But it starts to taper earlier, which for a round wrist works better, and which is one of the reasons why I was just again amazed how well it fit my wrist. And I was like, okay, so it goes
straight down.
It's a stupid amount of money for a steel chronograph, but thank God for...
it's stupid at retail. When I was at the shop, he told me the price. I was like, he told me, I'm not going to get many of these in the shops. You should take it now. And I was like, and although it's a gigantic amount of money, it's the price of basically an Audi S3. If you have any idea
Don't say that.
Those go for. Yeah, when you think about it like this. And I mean, brand new, and I'm like, but nevertheless, I was considering it because I love it so much. The heart speaks so much, and like it's crazy amount of money. I have my kids to think of. I have other things, more priorities. But it's one of those watches. When you see it, you gotta have it no matter what. If you gotta get rid of a kidney or one of your children, maybe, or just do whatever illegal thing you gotta do, you gotta get it.
Well,
you didn't have to go through that.
We do not condone illegal activities.
No, but it works on your brain. It's tough to see a watch like this and let it be. It stays with you.
It's very true. So I did find one. There's actually very few of them for sale secondhand. You have when I went on Chrono 24, I think there was about 10 or 12 of them for sale. 5 of them in platinum. Probably 4 of them in rose gold, and just about 3 or 4 in steel. 2 of the 4 that were for sale in steel were grey market, right? So brand new in box, etc.
Right.
And price on request. And 2 of them were secondhand. One of them was in Boston. The other one was in Japan. The one in Japan had a price like the one in Boston, which was about 30%-ish less than this price. And for me, I contacted the guy who had also the watch for sale in one of the forums I'm on, and I said, look, if you meet the price of the seller in Boston, I'll buy your watch. And he did so, and within a week I had the watch. So yes, it's about 30% off.
And it was a good experience buying. So it also
because it's also a watch enthusiast.
It's so expensive. You want to buy it from someone who you don't know personally, but at least know from sort of a reputation. Yeah,
there was that, and it was the fact that the guy was selling it because he wanted to buy something different. He had a particularly rare model of Patek. You feel free to ruin my home. Anyway, it's he had it. He wanted to buy a rare reference of Patek Philippe, and I'm like, it's not like I was doing a good deed because it's still a lot of money. You like to think that you're buying for someone, or you're selling to someone who is just not there for the profit, but because they're a watch enthusiast, right? Because they like the thing. It just makes it a little bit more personal. The guy was an absolute gentleman to deal with as well. So that was a very smooth transaction. It's the most expensive watch I've ever bought, And interestingly enough, is one of the watch where I had the
You-
least.
You feel okay about it.
Yeah, that I had the least amount of time, or I generally procrastinate a lot about buying a watch, and that's interesting. That's something that is just so punchy when it comes down to the price. I just decided, yeah, you know what, I've
When
got
you
the money.
know,
It's-
no, but the thing is different because I had the same experience with my two Pateks that came up for sale at a great price. It took me like 10 seconds because I knew they would go quite quickly. Because once you set your sight on something, it doesn't matter, the price doesn't really matter whether it's a Seiko or a Vacheron. I think if the price is right and the seller is right also. My two Pateks, the seller, I knew one was in Japan, so it was going to be fair and square,
yes.
and the other one was here in Hong Kong, and I could go get it right away, and it was a professional shop. So if you know that it's going to be just right, then it's not a question of money. I think it's just a question of making sure you're not wasting your money.
Yes. So for me, the way I went about it, yes, look, it's even at the price I got it, it's still extremely expensive for a steel chronograph. But then again, you can
see cars outside which are half cheaper than the watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You do.
Maybe not the boats. Some boats are probably cheaper than your watch.
Yeah. We're sitting right above a marina where I live. So yeah, so the guys who own this, they probably own the retail store, for watch in. So anyway, I'm over the moon with this. It was interesting because I was watching your video again the other day about you trying the watch on when you were at the boutique and saying, it's probably something more for the boardroom and not necessarily something you'd wear every day. The thing is,
I think if you can, I'd wear it every day.
Being in steel, you don't think about it as much as, for instance, I've got a Lange that we might show in another video. Gold, any type of gold is softer. So it is going to scratch so much more than stainless steel. On a day-to-day basis, steel is really what you want to have. That's number one. Number two, that strap might not be everybody's taste. It's got like this kind of
I think it's fine.
Vintage feeling about it. I mean, where the idea came for this, and I had that line for a long time, is some of those Italian horology magazines that I used to buy a few years ago when you saw these watches from the 40s and the 50s, and they were on this kind of tan leather, grained leather, and I just thought that the look was fantastic, and it just dresses it down. So I can completely wear this with a pair of jeans. If I put a black or a very dark blue alligator strap on this, it would be incredibly dressy. It would change the character of the watch, and I could probably wear this, in a very formal context. But this for daily wear, I'm obviously not going to engage in any kind of activity that is
tennis,
sporty, or
maybe not tennis.
I'm probably not going to go.
Not the first year.
Not the first year.
Month.
But probably next year I'll go white water rafting with it, because I think it's done.
Seems reasonable.
It seems reasonable. It's done exactly.
Well,
for
you'll
that.
be more relaxed with it by then, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm fairly relaxed.
Well, no,
with
but
it
seriously, you can wear that every day. The pleasure, to see that on your wrist anywhere you go.
Yeah, the thing is, it's kind of interesting because you're talking about chronograph. You have to mention something like the Daytona, for instance, which you can do pretty much everything with a modern Daytona because they're built tough and everything. The problem with them is that it screams from a distance.
Yeah.
It really does scream from a distance, and I have a couple, but I never wear them because of that.
Even when I wear my Rolex here, I love it for myself on my own, but when I'm outside, I feel very self-conscious that it's nothing special.
Well, the thing is, it's like it's a first world problem, like really, because but everything.
It's a sad thing to talk about.
Everything we're talking about is a massive first world problem, so you got to be conscious about that. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, it's extremely common. I bump into people wearing a Daytona 5 times a day, like every day. I don't bump into people wearing that. So it's not.
It's natural because we're so passionate talking about these watches that you want to have sometimes something that not everybody has, and this is it.
Yeah, and it's not snobbery. It's just something you want. Sometimes you want something that has a bit of a point of difference, which is. And what was interesting as well is before I bought that watch, I didn't show it live. You know, we didn't go to a shop with my wife, but I showed the pictures of that watch to her, and she said to me something really interesting. She said, "Look, this is a sexy watch.
Yeah,
it just has this kind of character. You know, it's pretty organic. It's got just such a character that it's very refined as well.
It looks like a cow.
It looks like a cow.
So it reminds us of where we're from, you know, the countryside. And,
but my wife is from the countryside in the UK, and it's probably the reason why she likes it, because there's literally cows in the field next door.
If you tell her what it's called, you know, the corne de vache, the cow horn, she'll be like, "Oh, that's why I liked it. Oh,
how much you paid for it again?"
And you paid what?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And she's thinking, I could have bought what kind of bag for that kind of money?
Yeah, no, look, she's not.
But she likes watches, right?
She likes watches. She's not miserable. She actually quite.
She's doing well. She doesn't.
She has a. We could talk about, you know, watch for ladies maybe in a different episode, and I could show you what I got her, because I got her a vintage two-tone Datejust from the 80s. And that she wears all the time, you know, when she's in the office, for instance. And I bought her a Tudor Black Bay 36 in blue color because she does she swims a lot. And she does sorry.
To go on the boat.
To go on a boat, she sails a lot and she swims a lot, and it's just this kind of no nonsense type of watch that looks great on a woman's wrist. Actually, it wears surprisingly well on a man's wrist as well, you know, very much like even the 14270 Explorer, or the next one in 36 millimeter. Once you've adjusted your sight to wearing a 36 millimeter watch,
course, yeah.
it wears extremely well. Really, it does, and it wears great on a man's wrist. It wears great on a woman's wrist. It's tough as hell. You know, they're just built tough. It's got an ETA movement in it. You know, she can bash it on just about anything. It'll keep on ticking. It's got 150 meters of water resistance. It's just a great watch all round during the weekend or for sports. So she got into the hobby a little bit thanks to me, because I've managed to spread the disease to her, to my cousin, to my brother, and a few other people as well. But no, it's great fun, and it's also great to have someone who appreciates it and who's not going to have a massive nervous breakdown because you've just spent a ridiculous amount of money.
Well, since we're talking about Tudor, let's take a break and we go back to we're going to talk about the Tudors in your collection and in this, and but we're going to talk a bit more about the Vacheron. I think there's a bit more to say.
Yeah, so we I think this video is already something like
almost an hour.
Almost
and
an hour.
I'm afraid it's not going to save, so I'm going to save it and then we're going to restart.
Okay, great.